a thriller about trauma-based OCD and an extreme way to overcome it. Let's talk about Exposure. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watcher Pass, and I'm here to talk to you about Exposure, which comes to digital on July 9th, 2024. It is a new film from writer and director Peter Cannon, and it deals with an individual that has some trauma-based OCD and an extreme way to overcome it. My hot take is I definitely think you should watch it. I thought it was a really nice, unconventional thriller that looks at kind of like mental illness and OCD specifically, and has some really great performances, amazing sound, and plenty of twists in the story. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it had just an amazing, amazing performance by Douglas Smith specifically. He plays the main character Tanner, but also Margo Harshman, who plays his wife Nicole, does a really good job as well. They have a nice contrast, conflict kind of throughout, but overall, I just think it was really interesting. I think it was a really well done film, and I'm really amazed that this is Peter Cannon's directorial debut. So, like I said, watch it. So all that being said, I'm gonna tell you a little about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into like a recap and the ending. So if you don't know what happened in this movie, and you might not, there are definitely some twists along the way. I would turn it off when I get to the ending section. Before that, though, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler free. I'll let you know I get to those spoilers. So Exposure is a story of Tanner, who had a trauma in his past. We don't really know what that was until much later in the film, but he had this trauma that led to this like OCD compulsion that he has, that he's always worried that someone is going to poison his food. And so because of that, he takes some fairly extreme measures when he thinks that there might be something contaminated with his food. It has led to kind of stress on his marriage. It has led to kind of like stress in his work and issues with his work. And it has led him to kind of like continue to focus and get worse and spiral as this has gone on. Eventually, his wife convinces him to try exposure therapy. And does this work, or does it just make his fears get worse? Well, you have to watch the movie to find out. So, things I liked about this movie. The first, I loved the performances. I thought that Douglas Smith did an amazing job in this movie, especially when like you are portraying a like compulsion and you're portraying something that is affecting him like alone. So there's a lot of scenes where it's just him kind of dealing with this compulsion, and he has to carry all of those scenes. He has to portray the audience like what is going on and make them like feel what is happening with him, and sometimes make them like sympathize with them, sometimes at least make them understand. And I thought he did just an amazing job. And his character changes throughout the movie as he goes into the exposure therapy, as other things start to happen. His character does change and evolve, and so Douglas had to do this as well. Now, I also liked Margo Harshman. She was his wife Nicole. She was kind of the rock in the relationship, so she had to do a lot to like support Tanner and his compulsions, but then also like show the effect that that is having on her life and her personal life and her social life. And so again, I thought she did a really good job too, kind of like making the audience sympathize with her and see what she is going through also. So the second thing I liked, I love the sound. It is really, really well done, and it helps you to kind of like feel what Douglas is going through. It is like elevated and exaggerated when it's needed, so you can like know that something is affecting them, like something is causing him to focus on something, or something is causing him to like feel uncomfortable. It really gives you a sense of like what Tanner is feeling in this movie. The third thing I loved, kind of related to the sound, but not specifically the sound, was like more like the effects and the thing, like the sound of different things that were, you know, happening. The music though is also really good, and it also helps you feel anxious and kind of claustrophobic at times. It helps you kind of like feel what Tanner is going through. It'll be kind of like it has some strong strings and some unsettling sounds that really put you on edge when Tanner's character is also on edge. The fourth thing I loved, I liked the exposure therapy. I liked the idea. I thought it was a really interesting idea, and I liked it more because, you know, this is something that Peter Cannon actually has been through himself. He went through exposure therapy himself. He, you know, did it in a different way, not in like this, you know, support group that they found. He had an actual therapist, but I do like that he kind of like, this is a very personal story. It feels like this is a story that, you know, he wanted to tell. He wanted to like accurately portray what exposure therapy can do and some of the, you know, the pluses and minuses of it. And so also when I talked to director Peter Cannon, which is up on my channel, you can check it out there, he mentioned that he is not a therapist, but he had his script checked by multiple therapists to make sure it was accurate, and then sent a cut of the movie to a therapist to have them review it to make sure that what he was, you know, portraying was accurate. And so I did love that also. I loved how he cared so much. I mean, it's something that is clearly personal to him that he wrote this movie. But I love that he cared so much about it that he made sure that it was accurate and got multiple opinions on it before kind of releasing it. So I really like that. I like the kind of like, I guess, the content, the subject, the kind of authenticity that it had. And the last thing I love the twists. There are some great twists in this film. There are some great surprises that you get along the way. You know, one of the things you don't know about is what happened to Tanner early on. You kind of get that throughout the film, but then there's also some other twists as the story progresses and as Tanner goes through the various exposure therapy steps. So, all that being said, things I didn't love as much. There's really only one, and it's minor. I didn't really love the final ending, but I'll caveat that with a sort of. Like, I didn't love the ultimate ending. Um, and I'll go into that later. But I thought the buildup was great. The music was beautiful. The overall scene was really well done. Like the character development was real interesting. I just didn't like the ultimate ending. But again, it's minor. I thought that the buildup to that, like the ending, the third arc or whatever of the film is fantastic. It's really, really well done. So it's a minor point. I still really like this film. I think it's a really, really good film. I think it's a really interesting one and an amazing directorial debut from Peter Cannon. So make sure to check out Exposure on July 9th, 2024. It's coming to digital so you can see it in the comfort of your own home. Make sure it's safe. Make sure that everything is checked off your list so you can have a safe, fun viewing experience. And I'm going to go into the ending right now. So if you don't know what happens in this movie, I would turn it off now because there will be spoilers. So in Exposure, you have Tanner who went through a trauma in the past. You don't know what it is until the kind of like very end of the film. So I will keep it here. I will not say it yet until later when we find out. But you know that Tanner went through something in the past. It involved a person that went to jail, and after whatever this experience was that and left him in the hospital, that caused him some trauma there, he developed this OCD kind of compulsion of fear that his food was going to be poisoned. So he's always worried that someone has messed with his food, contaminated with his food, something about his food has been touched, and so this leads to a like debilitating, I don't know, OCD condition where he like is having trouble with a lot of things in life. Like he doesn't want to eat things at the office, so he has to bring all of his food. But then once something is opened, he is worried that now it is no longer clean, and so they have to throw it out. So he like, if something is opened and it's no longer like sealed, so that could cause an issue. He gets if he gets like a nosebleed at work, he's worried that someone has poisoned him, and so he like rushes to the hospital. It has caused a lot of turmoil in his life, his marriage, and his just overall career. Now his wife is a chef. She is working, and she's basically supporting the family because Tanner is having trouble like keeping a job because his compulsion will always have something come up. And so eventually she kind of forces him, eventually she like suggests that he goes to this support group. It is a like an impromptu support group of other people that have these OCD conditions, and they are doing their own type of exposure therapy. Now exposure therapy is when you have your fear, and so you kind of like slowly introduce aspects of that fear, and kind of realize that everything is okay, right? So one person's fear was like germs, like she was a germaphobe. And so part of her compulsion therapy was she would like sit in a trash can for 30 seconds and then get out. And like being in the trash can was traumatizing. But then after that, she couldn't put hand sanitizer on because that was what she did to like make herself feel better. That was part of her compulsion. And so she had to just like sit there and live with this like unknown of germs and kind of realize that they'll probably be okay. Like that's part of what happens. You have to like live with, like, sit in this unknown, be uncomfortable, and then eventually kind of you start to get used to that discomfort and realize that it'll probably be okay, and you don't need to have your compulsion to kind of like overcome that unknown. So after another episode where Tanner thinks that he's been poisoned, he's been taking these charcoal pills that are there to like neutralize any poison that he gets into his system. He takes them, almost like candy. And so eventually he has an episode, he throws up. The throw up is black because of the charcoal pills, but he thinks he's been poisoned. So he calls the ambulance. Nicole arrives there and like basically is like, no, he's fine. He's not taking the ambulance. We can't afford it. And also like, he's fine. This seems to, cause a lot more friction. Nicole seems to be at her wit's end because financially they're struggling because of all of Tanner's various hospital visits and things like that. He is not working. She's the sole worker, so she is working and taking care of him. It is a lot for her, and so it seems like this might be a breaking point. So Tanner finally goes to the support group, and there he starts to finally take it a little bit seriously and starts to make his ladder. So the first step on his ladder, it's like a 5-step ladder where you deal with your your phobia, your compulsion, whatever it is to look at the person's face, look at the person's mugshot, this mugshot of the person that that did this to him. And so he eventually does that. He gets the mugshot from Nicole. Nicole has the police file. He's never been able to look at it before. And now he finally does, and he looks at the mugshot for 30 seconds, and he isn't really sure what to do. Like, I think he thought it would be a bigger moment. So he's done that first step, and now he's going to kind of start continuing along the way. So the next meeting, he gets there with a few other people, but the meeting was canceled late. I guess the main person who sets up this group, this electrician named Pat, he wasn't able to show up, so the meeting was canceled. And so the people that were there decided to go to a bar and have some drinks. Now, they talk a little bit about various compulsions. One of them, Charlie, kind of shares what his OCD compulsion is. And afterwards, Tanner goes outside for a bit, comes back, and everyone's gone. And so he now has to walk to his car by himself with this phobia. And he walks for a long time. And I was like, why did you park so far away? Like, he's walking down alleys, and you're like, what is going on? Like, A, something is probably going to happen to him. And B, why did he park so far away? He should have just driven to the bar, and then he could have gotten in the car. But we see why later. He eventually gets to this place, KH Cinnamon Donuts. And this is apparently where the incident happened. And he has a flashback of what happened. He was at KH Donuts, and there was a white van with the doors open, and someone was saying, hey, help me, help me. And Tanner's like, hey, let me call the police. And he's like, come on, like, help me. And eventually Tanner like goes into the van to help this person. He thinks that maybe he's fallen over, thinks that maybe he's trapped, who knows. But when he gets in the van, something happens. We don't know what, but something happens. There you hear like a chain. Maybe Tanner was chained up, maybe like the doors were closed. Something happened there. But this is the second step of Tanner's ladder. He wants to face his fear. So he goes to the place where it happened, the place where he was kidnapped, and the place where it all started. And so he did that. He crossed that off his list, and he says, like, I feel amazing. And it seems like he is feeling better. He's starting to get, more comfortable. He is starting to like be more open with his wife. Before they were a little bit more strained. Now he feels a little bit more open. Seems like their relationship is getting better. The next morning, he makes breakfast for them, and he has always had trouble with like preparing food. He's always worried that it's contaminated. He doesn't want to eat it after it's been like out of the packaging. But he makes breakfast for his wife. He eats it. He actually eats it. And it seems like everything is going really well. So the next step in Tanner's ladder is to see the case files. And so he looks through the case files. And again, I think he was expecting more from this. I think he was expecting there to be more information in the case files, and also him to feel more. He says that this isn't enough, and he's got to go to the next step. He is progressing very fast, as you can imagine. Like, he just made his list like a day ago, and he is already through like step 3 and wants to go to step 4. Step 4 is he's going to spend a night in the place where it happened. Like, there's some sort of like cabin in the woods, or like a shed, like out in the I don't think it's the woods really. It feels like maybe California, so like out in the desert. He's gonna go spend a night there, and that is again to confront his fears. That is where it happened. That is where like he has these bad memories, and so he's going to spend a night there. So he does. It is an intense night. You're always worried that something's going to happen. He seems to have some dreams about what actually happened, but nothing actually does. He's in there. He's dealing with the discomfort of being in that situation. But again, he kind of is getting used to it because nothing does happen. He leaves the next day and he feels fine. So he finally is on the last step. He goes to Nicole's restaurant, which is something he wouldn't do. He's eating the food there, which is again is something he wouldn't normally do. And he talks to Nicole, and then he says he wants to do the last step. The last step is hearing his voice. He wants to talk to the person that did this to him, that caused his trauma. And Nicole, I think, is hesitant, but she agrees to allow it. He goes to the support group also and tells them all the things he's been doing, and they say like, this is too extreme. Like, you're going too fast. Like, you're pushing it too much. And they say like, why are you pushing it? And he's basically saying like he doesn't want to be the person that he was. He wants to be the person that Nicole married. So he's doing this all for Nicole. That was kind of the impetus for him to go to the support group. Was it seemed like Nicole was at her wit's end with his phobia and with his OCD, and so he is pushing himself to try to become the person that he believed Nicole deserves. So he eventually gets the number. They go to a payphone, so I assume it's not traceable. He calls the person and pretends to be like a political caller. So he talks to the person, and eventually the person on the other end, the person on the other end says like, I know you. How do I know you? You're the one I did that to. And that is when Tanner hung up. So he did it. He talked to the person. He talked to the person that did this to him. And I guess that's the last of his ladder. It seems to work. He seems to be doing getting a little cocky though. It feels like he is becoming more and more brazen, which I guess is good because before he wasn't. But he's having dinner with Nicole and some of her coworkers, and like there's a white van across the street, and they like dare him to go and like knock on the van, and that would be a big issue for him before because he was kidnapped in the van. That's where something happened. And so he does it though. He is hesitant, but he goes up and like knocks on the van. No one answers, and you're like, oh, I guess it must not be occupied. And as he's walking back, the van drives away, and like, oh no, like someone was there. What's gonna happen to him? But nothing does. He also, is making friends with the kind of the exposure group, and one of the people, Charlie, is in a play, and so Tanner and some of the other people in the group decide to go see his play to support him. And when he gets there, he notices that one of the people in the play looks very much like the mugshot that Tanner has seen before. It is the guy that did this to him. He is in the play. And so after like the performance, he goes backstage to like see the person to like to I guess confront his fear. He runs into him and he says like, William Cobb, did we talk on the phone? And the first he doesn't realize what's happening. And then William says, oh, you've got to talk to her. She put me up to it. And you're like, whoa, what was that? Seems like maybe Nicole set this whole thing up so he would confront his fear. So after he realizes this, he drives home. He interrupts a dinner party Nicole has. Nicole is having her coworkers over. They're having a dinner party because Tanner's out at the play. He kind of makes a scene. He tells everyone they have to leave because he is so upset. Nicole tries to say that we'll talk about it later, but Tanner is having none of that. Everyone leaves, and that is when he, confronts her that he met her. He met the person. He met the actor. He knows what happened, and she says that she, has been lying to save his life, to save the life that they signed up for. That Oscar is just a person that she paid to portray William Cobb. And she's like, you know why I need to do that? You know why I need to make a mugshot from scratch? Because you've seen him. You've seen William Cobb. He lives here. He lives in this town and works at the grocery store. So it's a guy from the grocery store that we saw earlier. We didn't really know who that was. Well, we now know that was William Cobb, as this person that was like stocking supplies, and that Nicole asked for a recommendation on something. So this causes Tanner's phobia to kind of like spiral. He says like, oh, it makes perfect sense. That's he has access to all my food. That's why he's contaminating me. That's why he's like poisoning me. And while he's doing this, he has this shotgun that he bought for protection, and so he's just like holding it, to like protect himself from William Cobb, who could at any moment break in and poison them. And Nicole yells at him, and he momentarily points at her, like almost as a reaction, and that is not good. Like that causes her to leave. That causes her to like go stay with a friend. And eventually, Tanner decides to kind of like take matters into his own hands. So he goes to the store. He kidnaps William Cobb and makes him drive to that shack. And William Cobb is very confused. Like, I don't know who you are. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is not me. I don't know what's going on. But Tanner is fairly certain. And so he makes William Cobb drive to that shack. And when he's in there, he locks him in the shack. And after he's in the shack, after Tanner's pointing the gun at him, then William Cobb does remember. He's like, he basically says like, I'm not that guy anymore. He says there were a lot of people that he did this to, and he eventually let Tanner go, and isn't that worth something? And you would think that would be some sympathy. Tanner doesn't sympathize with him much. He closes the door again, but later we get some more information. So we find out that William Cobb was a tweaker of some sort. I think he was on meth or something like that. And he said that made him paranoid. And he was worried that someone was out to get him. Kind of similar to Tanner's OCD compulsion. William Cobb was worried that someone was out to get him. Someone was going to hurt him. And so when he saw Tanner in that parking lot, or when he set up that trap, he fixated on him and said, that's him. So he thought if he got Tanner, then this feeling of dread would go away. So William Cobb kidnapped Tanner, put him in this shed, and I guess he fed him rat poison, among other things, to try to like kill him. But he couldn't do it. Like, the rat poison didn't work. You don't know if like William Cobb couldn't get the right amount of poison, or if the rat poison just didn't work, and then eventually he felt better, but eventually like he came down. But William does say that eventually he did come down, and when he saw Tanner's face, he couldn't do it, and so he let him go. And so that is the whole story of what happened. Tanner was kidnapped. He was locked in this shed. He was fed rat poison to try to kill him. That's why he's worried that someone's going to poison him. That's why he was in the hospital after the whole ordeal. But William Cobb eventually came down from, whatever his, drug-induced state was, and he let Tanner go. Now, after this, William cries and says he knows what he did was messed up. Tanner just walks out and locks the door. He seems angry. He seems like, I think he realizes that like there's a similarity in what he was going through versus what William was going through. And also Tanner's not a killer. Doesn't want to actually, I don't think he's going to actually kill this person. So I think he also realizes that he has taken this a little bit too far. His exposure therapy has taken him to this whole new area. And so he goes, empties the shotgun shells, does some deep breathing, which is an important thing because in his exposure group, they talked about deep breathing, but they never taught Tanner to do it. He kind of went his own way and built his own ladder and confronted it very, very quickly. Well, deep breathing was apparently a foundational step in this whole process. And so now that he is here, now that he is in the situation, he does some deep breathing, help him calm down. He empties the shotgun shells, walks back, unlocks the door, and leaves. When he gets back after this whole ordeal, Nicole's there and she is freaked out. Like she had left, she was ignoring her phone. Her friends hid her phone from her to make sure that, Tanner couldn't call her, couldn't like put his garbage on her, things like that. But I think Nicole felt bad. She eventually did get the phone, heard the messages, saw what was happening, and came back and was worried. So when Tanner comes back, she's really happy. She like asks if he's okay. She starts apologizing to him. She says she's gonna like make him some dinner. She says she's got to call Pat because Pat was looking for him too. And Tanner's like, it's okay, I can do it. Like I can do it all. And after this, Tanner says to Nicole, you don't have to stick around. And she's like, I can't just leave you like this. Like I'm gonna take care of you. It's what I signed up for. And Tanner's like, it's not what you signed up for. This is not what you signed up for. This whole situation that Tanner's in is not what she signed up for. And then he goes to the bathroom, takes a bottle of pills, and like dumps it out. And in it is like crushed up medicine. And apparently this is Xanax that Nicole got for Tanner when he was freaking out. But it's crushed into a powder. And Tanner has been worried that someone's been contaminating his food. It actually like scrubbed the inside of his water bottle and found some white powder. And we all thought that was in his head. But apparently it was Xanax. So Nicole, was drugging him for his own benefit, right? To help him with his anxiety. She was giving him crushed up Xanax, but that seemed to only be making his anxiety worse. And then she orchestrated this whole fake kidnapper persona to help him deal with it. But again, she was lying to him. And I think Tanner's realizing that he doesn't need Nicole and that, maybe what she was doing was actually harmful to him. And so he says, it's okay to take care of yourself. And she says, next time you have an episode, I won't be there. And he says, don't worry, I'll be. So it seems like Tanner's finally confident in himself. He opens the door, lets her leave. She seems a little distraught, but Tanner seems kind of sure of this. And as she's leaving, she says, why are you doing this to yourself? And Tanner says, discomfort's the point, which I loved. I love that line because that was the whole point of exposure therapy. You're supposed to deal with this discomfort. You're supposed to be exposed to this discomfort, and that eventually lets you, get used to it. And so when she's leaving, this is definitely not something that he wanted. Remember, Nicole was the main reason he was doing all of this exposure therapy. But now that he is, I don't know, confronting this, forcing this issue, he is dealing with this discomfort, and it is going to be a new normal for him. Again, I didn't love this ending, though, because, I don't know, I wanted a happy ending. Like, even though Nicole did this to him, she was doing it because she cared about him. She was doing it because she wanted to make him feel better. And I don't know, maybe a happier version of that would have been nice. But I did like this buildup. I did like the way that it played out. I thought the performances were great. And again, that discomfort at the point line, what a fantastic way to end this movie. So I guess I just wish it was happier. But if it was happier, you wouldn't get that final line. So maybe it's a mixed bag for me. But again, that is Exposure. I think it's a really good movie. I think it has some really great performances. I love the kind of like the content, the music, the sound, the performances, and the slow burn and build up. I definitely think you should check it out when it comes to digital on July 9th, 2024. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.